Hello everybody, this is Stephen Howson. This is the Warm Down podcast today. I'm delighted to be joined by Laura Woodsey from Soccer AM. How's it going, Woodsey?
Very good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I could have been better. I'm not going to lie. I could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse. Before we get into all that shite, anyway, this is available on iTunes, this is available on Stitcher, this is available on Castbox, and of course, it's available every single Monday here on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe on all of those different things, whatever phone system you've got. So yesterday, we saw United lose 2-0 at the Emirates. Jose Mourinho's first defeat to Arsene Wenger in anything that meant anything. Yeah. And so Arsenal fans, when's the parade?
We're saving that for when we win the FA Cup, aren't we? I mean, like, it's kind of what everyone was saying, really. It was a bit of a nothing game. It's a shame that a fixture that used to mean so much at the moment means so little. Before we went on air, so I was there for Soccer AM, and we did a little catch up in the morning with Thierry Henry and Jamie Redknapp. And you know, I've never seen Thierry Henry so unenthusiastic about any game in my life, I don't think, apart from, you know, that really, you know, maybe a top and bottle table clash or whatever. He's just so unenthused by it. And he said, you know, it just doesn't mean anything. 5th and 6th, you know, Mourinho's come out 10 days prior and said, you know, the Premier League for me isn't my priority anymore. It's all about the Europa League, getting into Champions League football that way. And, you know, Arsenal, I mean, I haven't lost the faith, but I mean, that top 4 seems like a very long way away now, really. And you've almost got to get into the position where you're accepting that it's not going to happen and have a think about what you're going to do next season, really. But it lacked a lot of passion. I think you could tell, I wouldn't say for all the players at all. I think there was some fire in a few of the players, but I mean, the stands, it just didn't feel like a particularly exciting game.
We had Troopz on, Full-Time Devils. Troopz come and did a fan cam with us yesterday, and he said top 4's on for you guys. And as I was watching the fan cam, I was having a quick look at the table, and I was like, even if you win your games in hand, you're still behind Liverpool. I don't think you can get above City. And I was like, that seems a mad thing to come out and say. But apart from that, like as you were saying with Thierry Henry, said it doesn't feel anything. We've always got the Liverpool game. You've always got the Spurs game. We've also always got the City game. But United and Arsenal was the rivalry of the Premier League era, wasn't it? It was both of us always challenging for titles. The best games that I can remember, the 4-2 at Highbury, I don't know if it was the last season. I think it might have been a couple of years before the last game that he's had there. The one where John O'Shea scored the tip. The one where you had Keno telling Vieira he was going to see him out there, and that doesn't exist anymore, does it? It almost feels like looking at videos of George Best or something. It feels like a completely different thing. Like yesterday couldn't have been any further away from that whatsoever, and it's a sad indictment of where we are as clubs, but maybe perhaps how far the league's gone on without us.
I lost you a little bit there for a second, but I heard enough of what you said. I think the problem is you touched on rivalries there, and I think that's what the Premier League really thrives on and has thrived on in the past, especially with these big games. You know, the United and the Arsenal games when you've got like the Vieiras and the Keanes that are going to go head to head. And I'm not inciting, you know, I'm not encouraging violence or anything like that. But I think as far as football fans go, that's the kind of passion that you want to see in your players. That's why I enjoy, you know, when Zlatan joined, even though he's not joining Arsenal, he's joining you guys. I enjoy having characters like that in the league because these are the arrogant guys that are going to walk around and make statements, and they're the kind of people that make. Oh, I dropped you there for a minute. Sorry, must be on the heavy side. They're the kind of people that you want walking around the league, throwing their weight around, creating more rivalries, making fixtures like what we saw yesterday actually mean something. And you know, maybe if we were sitting here, you know, maybe if we were first and second in the league and it was closer, we'd be saying that this fixture does mean something. But I think the position that we've put ourselves both in this year, I think that plays more of a part on how big this fixture is.
Well, it's two ball men fighting over a comb of 4th place, isn't it? Essentially, neither of us are going to get it, and neither of us really, deserve it. So I think on the characters thing, I think that's why we always like people like Balotelli being in the league. He's never going to be in a team of the year. He doesn't really score that many goals, but you would rather have Balotelli's in the league than Michael Owen's in the league, wouldn't you?
Oh, you're so mean. I mean, I'd rather have Balotelli in comms than Michael Owen in comms. No, I think you're right. I mean, if you can't necessarily, the way that Balotelli went, bless him, like if you can't always back up what you're saying with the talent that you promise, you're probably going to be found out every now and then. I think that every day in my job, actually. But you're right.
When he scored against United and whips out the "Why Always Me" shirt,
Why
right?
Always Me, yeah.
Obviously, I hated it, but ultimately, you see, that becomes part of the lexicon and part of the culture. You see City fans wearing shirts that just say that, and you think, that's not because of how good he was as a player for your team. He's never going to be on the par of Silva and Aguero and some of the players that they've had there at the Etihad. But you think, that's something that's going to stick with the players because of that one moment that he did. And you don't get that out of the beige media-trained players, do you? You get that out of the crazy, the Zlatans, the Balotellis, the Cantonas, the Keanes. That's what, the flavour, innit? You need the flavour in the league at the moment. We got no flavour.
We do need the flavour. We've got no flavour. You do. I mean, it's stuck in your brain. Do you know what I mean? Why was me? Not just your brain, stuck in everybody's brain. It's very visual as well. I mean, you need characters like that in the Premier League. And I think at the moment, one thing as an Arsenal fan that I think we are missing is like, you know, you've got one side when Sanchez is obviously world class, and at the moment, you could argue only world class. I don't think that's even an argument. The only world class player in our squad. But, you know, he gets dug out sometimes for his attitude. And, you know, he goes off and when he got subbed, can't remember the game, he got subbed. It wasn't even that long to go and we were winning. And he got subbed and he sat there and he was so annoyed and he had his head, under his jacket. And people dug him out for that. But I think actually, no, you want players like that are going to be that want to play as every minute they possibly can. And when you do take them off, they're going to be really annoyed about it. Because they don't care if they're winning. They want to play football. They want to win things. And I think that's why Sanchez has been so frustrated this season, because he came to Arsenal and there was promise and he wanted to win a Premier League. And he's obviously not going to win that Premier League this year. I really hope he stays for a lot longer. I know his contract is nearly up and it will be a real problem. Oh, God, it's so hard to say. The difficulty is, I mean, it's so entwined, isn't it, with Wenger? There are so many players in that squad that if Wenger walks, they will walk. But at the same time, with someone like Sanchez is a winner. You know, it's in his blood. He wants to go on and win things. And which we won't now probably. I mean, I know what Troopz is saying. Mathematically, it's still on the cards that we could finish top four, but we'd have to rely on a lot of other teams above us to, you know, have a real mare for us to do it. The minute you don't finish top four and that promise of tier European football is not on the cards, that's when you're not only going to start losing your top players, but you're going to stop attracting top players. Who's going to want to come to Arsenal when we're playing in the Europa League with you lot next season? who's going to want to?
We're going to be in it. I honestly change on an hourly basis whether I think we're going to be in it. Yeah.
Well, you know what, I was thinking about this actually, because I was thinking, like you said, I don't think yesterday necessarily meant too much. After, I don't know whether that was Mourinho just covering his back and saying, you know, we're not concentrating on this game just in case he did lose it. But you guys, it's a tricky position, you know, a sandwich between these two semi-final games. It's a lot of eggs to put in one basket to say we're going to win the Europa League, we're going to get our place back in the Champions League next year. But generally, I mean, it might just be the easiest route. What do you think about it?
I think now it looks like the easiest route. I think before the Swansea game and that fuck up, it wasn't the easiest route. It was in our hands under the Swansea game and we didn't take the opportunity we had there. And even earlier in April, we had opportunities and we just threw them away. And you think, so many of them draws. I mean, I would take losing half of them games to win the other half and actually be comfortably inside the top four. And I would like to go and win the Europa League, but I'd like to win the Europa League because we can just go and win it rather than we need that to get Champions League qualification. I'd like to be second or third in the league. Yeah, don't worry about it. Let's go win this cup. Whereas now we're going to be more happy that we've won the cup because it means Champions League than actually winning the cup for the sake of winning the cup. And I think people are massively overestimating our abilities versus the likes of Ajax. That's going to be a massive difficult game if it is them. I mean, they could capitulate and Lyon could get through. We've still got the second leg of Celta Vigo to do it. And ultimately, if we end up doing it, there's going to be so many vines of me pulled up saying, fuck the Europa League, let's fucking ignore this thing. But ultimately, at the start of the season, I said, banking on not the start, maybe Christmas, November sort of time, I said, trying to win the Europa League to get into the Champions League is like trying to win the lottery to pay your rent. It's like, yes, we can possibly do it technically, but you're asking for a lot of variables to go in your favour for that to happen. And ultimately, the longer you go in this competition, the more your league form suffers. And that's undoubtedly happened to United. We've always suffered on the back end of a Europa. And as that's come to the quarters and the semi-finals, it's been proven in the league, and our league form has suffered. Maybe if we didn't have all these knockout stages, we'd have been so comfortable inside the top 4 by now. But if we do it and we get into the Champions League and we get a trophy, then yeah, I'll take it. I'm not happy. I think people are like, are you happy, are you sad? And I don't think it's as binary as that. I think there's varying degrees of grey, and I'm like, I'll take it because I can see there's a big job on Mourinho's hands, but I'm not happy.
Yeah. Do you know what is interesting to me is the reaction of the fans. Say, for example, this doesn't work out to plan, the Europa League, you guys either get knocked out second leg of the semis, or you get knocked out, or you lose in the final. Is the reaction to Mourinho, because it's similar in terms of fans' reactions to Mourinho is quite similar to a lot of fans' reactions to Arsene Wenger as well, in that when it goes well, you're totally behind him. You're like, yeah, he's done it, he's a genius, he's a tactician, all this works. If you guys don't get what you want from this, what will your reaction to Mourinho be as a United fan? Will you think the season's been a complete failure?
Possibly, but I don't always think that you can just blame the manager. I think if you look into the actual tangible stats of the season, you see that what he's improved from Louis van Gaal, our expected goals are up, which I know some people think is just a bullshit woo-woo sort of stat, but our expected goals are up. Our shots per game is up, and we're only behind Tottenham in terms of shots per game. Our chance creation is 3rd behind Liverpool. All of these stats have been improved from Louis van Gaal, where we was in the bottom half for both of those stats. The only stat that's changed and gone down, I mean, we're better defensively, we're making more chances. The only thing that's changed and gone down is our conversion rate. And our conversion rate is now the worst in the league. And I think in the bottom 5 for the top 5 or 6 leagues in Europe, it's fucking woeful. I think Empoli are the only team that I can think of off the top of my head that have got a worse conversion rate than United at the moment. If we had an average conversion rate, Zlatan would have scored 50 goals, and we would have been absolutely flying up the leagues. I think, actually, if you worked it out, I think some of the games where we've missed X number of goals, we probably would have been, I think, just behind Tottenham by a point or something like that, which feels fair to me in terms of how we are in terms of ability. I mean, that home game at Old Trafford against you lot, how you got a point out of that, I will never know.
A lot of people got a point out of you this season.
Yeah, yesterday was fair enough, wasn't it? I mean, I think it was United need 10 shots, I think, to score a goal. I think 10 shots, can't remember how many on target. But then you look at the Burnley game, we had 37 shots, and it was 0-0. You think, statistically, that's ridiculous. Like, that games like that exist.
Yeah. What did you think of the game yesterday? Because it must have been, I mean, when I saw Rooney was starting, it was tricky, wasn't it? Because Mourinho set out to suggest it's going to be a weakened side. It wasn't as weak as we thought it was going to be, actually. You still had some good players playing.
Fairly strong. And I was pretty happy with what I saw at kickoff. I was delighted for Tuanzebe. I've been raving about him for 18 months or something like that. He's absolutely class. I thought,
and that was his debut, as in the Premier League, his full start, wasn't it?
Yeah, he come off the bench against Wigan at home in the FA Cup. So yeah, first Premier League game, first Premier League start, out of position at right back. Thought he dealt with Sanchez brilliantly. But yeah, I thought the team was strong. I was like, Rooney, Mata, Mkhitaryan, Marshall. I was like, no Rashford, who is one of our major outlets without Zlatan. No Pogba, who is our only creative spark. No Bay, who's arguably our best defender. And you think, that's a big thing when you have that spine back in the team. And you look at the players that are injured in terms of Rojo, who's been fantastic at centre-half, and Zlatan, who is, all right, been a bit off the boil towards the back end of the season prior to his injury, but still miles away our leading goal scorer. You think them in the team probably make a massive difference to it. I see a lot of people saying Jose part of the bus, and I thought up until Xhaka getting that fluky goal, I thought it was fairly even. I thought he was on top. I thought you had the possession, certainly in the first half, but not in the second half. I thought it was really even until then. I don't agree with people saying that we part the bus. We have undoubtedly part the bus this season, but I think it's fine. I think people are massively forgetting that sometimes managers set up defensively, and I got no problem with it.
Yeah. You've gone a little bit. I've lost you a little bit. You're still there though, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm still here. So, from your point of view, one of the things that everybody wants to know then, are you Wenger in or Wenger out?
Oh, God. Do you know what? I'm so Oh, it's so frustrating this season because I'm very much a believer of, if I could, I would never hear that question again. I would happily never hear it again this season. I just want to get to the end of the season. I think there's so much pressure from the fans put on that question, and I completely understand people spend a lot of money on season tickets, on away games, on home games even. You know, this is their love. You know, Arsenal is their love, it's their life. I just think that it's become a bit of a circus, and I think there's so much attention put on this situation that there's no way that it can't filter down into the players. They're almost playing with something completely different on their minds. I think there's an obscene amount of attention, obscene amount of pressure. I don't agree with the rioting. I don't agree with the protesting. I especially don't agree with it inside the stadium. I think that once that game starts, it should be about nothing else apart from that game. And I think Arsene Wenger is a fantastic manager, and I think, you know, his legacy is incredible. When his time is up and he's ready to go, he will go. The one thing that does frustrate me slightly is that there is no answer. So I think if he came out and said, right, I'm not going to be here next season, at least that part of things would be sorted. I think when it's left like this and it feels a little bit like he's hedging his bets, do you know what I mean? It almost feels like, I'll wait to see whether we can get the FA Cup. I'll wait to see if that's something that we can get. And if it is, it justifies me being here for another season or another 2 seasons. I just feel there's another part of me that thinks if it hasn't been announced yet and there's no one in the pipeline yet, he's got to be staying. And I just think the unease of it is what creates this massive frustration and confusion among fans, and it's snowballing into a situation that is so out of control. And I'd hate to see him go out like that. I think it's already bad anyway. I'd hate to see him go out on any much more of a low than he could now. Do you know what I mean?
It's not just the so circus tricky. Of, is he going to stay? Isn't he going to stay? Do you want him in? Do you want him out? But that seems to be the only analysis that you get from Arsenal fans, at least, and sometimes even from the media, is they don't talk about the performances. They don't talk about the progression of tactics. They don't talk about how he's evolving this style of play, or how certain players are fitting into a system or adapting to a certain system. It's, should Wenger stay or should Wenger go? And it's like, it's the only question that you see. I know I've just thrown it at you, but it is the only question people seem to throw out. I mean, I obviously watch Arsenal fan TV occasionally, normally when they lose, just to see the absolute chaos that's going on there. But you don't see any analysis of anything. It's just, I want Wenger out, or I think Wenger should stay, and it's crazy, isn't it? So I almost think, for everyone's sanity, it'd be best if he left. Yeah.
I think you might be right there. I totally agree. It's like my first point. It's overshadowing what we're doing. Or what we're trying to do. There's so much pressure on the situation now. If Wenger was to walk away, and he had a predecessor that actually he had someone to pass it on to that was going to take Arsenal into new places and that got the support of the fans, then brilliant. What worries me is that if he walks away, I don't think he'll ever be pushed out, and I hope, by the sounds of it, I don't think he's not the kind of person that would be pushed out. I think that what the fans almost want at the moment is, if we don't get Champions League football, at least it's going to give the board a reason to say, right, this is enough. You haven't completed what you said what you were going to do. Now it is time to go. I think, if he can do
a lot of power on the board, though, isn't that going to play a massive part into it?
Well, it is, but the thing is, what he's always been able to promise, in a way, or what he's always been able to do, is that Champions League football. And I think for a lot of it's the money that the Champions League brings in. It's the top 4 finishes. It's being a big club in the Premier League. When we drop out that top 4 and we don't, I don't think Tottenham, St Tottenham, that for me doesn't play a part of it at all. But when you stop being a big club, which we are massively in danger of being, surely the board is then going to turn around and say, this isn't right, it's time for you to go. I mean, he's an intelligent man. He might decide, maybe there is a different direction that Arsenal need to be taken in, and I'm not the one to do it. I mean, there's obviously, we're linked with Diego Simeone. I don't know if that's really going to be on the cards. There's another one, I read an article today, Monaco boss, so he might be coming, and I just don't know really what's going to be happening. It's all rumours, isn't it?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be. Normally, you can hear on the. I mean, I was getting told in January that Mourinho was coming in the summer, and Van Gaal had handed his notice in and all that lot. So it was easy to sort of prepare yourself in the build-up to it actually happening. And obviously we were outside filming when the news come in that Louis Van Gaal's been sacked, and there was no reaction at all from it. It was like, kind of...
We know, you're expecting it.
But there's nothing, there's not even a whisper of, that guy's been lined up. The only whisper that you hear is, he's got a new deal and they're just waiting for the right time to announce it. And I actually can't fucking wait.
They're waiting for a positive moment to go, he's got 2 more years. Then everyone's going to be like, well, just because we beat Man United doesn't mean we want him for another 2 years.
Are they going to do it as if you win the FA Cup against Chelsea? Are they going to be like, and welcome, your new winners of the FA Cup, Arsene Wenger got a new 2-year deal, and everyone goes, what did he just fucking say?
Sorry, did you just? It'll be the open top bus parade, won't it? He'll be on top and he'll be
on the back. It'll be a banner on the back. New 2-year deal.
By the way, we're staying for 2 more years. But do you can you imagine the frustration? And this is why I can sympathise with the fans that are so frustrated, is because, like you say, when Mourinho was linked, it was an obvious link. It was a rumour that was a really badly kept secret. There is, at the moment, there's speculation. There's links to people that might work for Arsenal, but there's no solid rumour. Which I sit there and go. The only
one is that he's got a new deal and they're waiting for the announcement. That's the only rumour that you sort of hear rumours of, isn't there? And
what's going to happen though? It's so divided. It's so 50-50, and I hate that as an Arsenal fan. I hate that we are such a divided club at the moment. It's not, with the history that we've got and the legacy that we have. I hate that our fan base is being torn in two so much.
And it is being torn massively in two, isn't it, between those who support him. I think it's just because there's nothing else that people are willing to talk about. So people are just becoming entrenched in their own idea that he needs to stay or he needs to go, and nothing else fucking matters until this one thing gets resolved, I think. And that's madness. But that's the position that you find yourself in. Let's throw a hypothetical at you then. So let's say he does walk away in the summer, a la what Fergie did. Do you expect the same sort of vacuum where you realise, oh my God, he had his fingers in every single pie at this club? What's going to happen now? Because I think Fergie needed 3 or 4 men to replace what he was doing. I think it's probably the same with Wenger. He's coming to a club, was it 94 he came, or 97 he came?
It's been, is it 94?
It's a long time.
It's been 20 years, give or so. I think the problem is, I totally agree with you, and that's why we have to be quick not to just kick him out, because if you think somebody's going to come in straight away and win the league for you next year, it's not about that. You hit the nail on the head earlier on. It's not just about management, it's about players and getting the players right. And I don't think we necessarily have that right. I'm not a tactician, I'm not a manager. I wouldn't sit there and go, I'm going to sell him, whatever. But I don't think it's as simple as bringing in a manager and going, yeah, we're going to win the league the next year. When I walk around Arsenal as well, so I do some work not only for Sky, like I'll pop in there for Arsenal from time to time. What I love about that club and about that environment is what Wenger has created, and it's this culture, and culture is a word that's used a lot when you talk about Arsene Wenger and Arsenal in general, and the fact that they are very tight knit, and it has a family feel about it, and it's from a media perspective, when you go in there and you're working. I know it sounds a little bit fluffy around the edges, but you go in there and those players they are so polite and they're so welcoming. They know exactly what they got to do. And I love that. I love that culture in clubs. And I think that, the Arsenal, what they have right is that no player is bigger than the club. And I think that's something that Arsenal has always had deep in his sort of, in his man management. I think when somebody else comes in, it will be completely different, and those players are going to have to get used to playing under somebody else, his ideas and his culture, whoever else comes in, and that's going to take a toll on them as well, and it's going to be very different. If he walks away from it this year, for example, the end of the season, these guys are going to have a new manager. They're not going to be playing in the Champions League. They're going to be playing in the Europa League. They're going to be playing on Thursday night, much closer to the weekend. The turnaround's going to be shorter. They're not going to have the same amount of money as they would coming in. They're not going to be attracting top class players. They might be losing one of our world class players, maybe even Ozil as well, who last year we would have said was world class, but this season doesn't seem to be sort of firing like we know he can. It's going to be so different. It's going to be gut-wrenchingly different, and that's what worries me about wanting the Wenger out camp to succeed, because it's almost better the devil you know. Do you know what I mean?
Right then, savages, this video is brought to you by BetBull, and you can win shit and get free shit by just following me on BetBull. If you hit the description below, follow the link, download BetBull if you're on iOS, over 18 and in the UK, and you can join in all the fun. And if you followed my bet last weekend, then you would have got a free bet for the final Premier League weekend. I think it's a £5. So you can get yourself some free dosh by following us on there, and that's probably a good thing, because if you did follow my bet, you didn't win a damn thing. So here's what I had my bets on. Last week's ACCA was City to win, United and Arsenal to draw, Liverpool to draw. No, hang on. I had Liverpool to win, and he drew. Leicester to win, and Hull to win against David Moyes' Sunderland. And no, they decided that they wanted to turn up and win a game. Cheers for that, Moyes, as usual, letting me down again. I did have a 2 result insurance, ACCA insurance on there. That didn't come in because I had 3 games go completely Pete Tong for me. But if you want to follow me for the worst betting tips that you've ever seen on YouTube, then make sure to download BetBull and hit us up on probably Wednesday's podcast. I'll be doing my ACCA, so check out that on Wednesday. And you can see which bets aren't winning next weekend as well. So thank you for checking those out. Links in the description below. Back to the warm down. I've got 2 questions for you. One, hang on, let me figure this out. Right, I'll keep it on topic. I was going to go off topic, but I'll keep it on topic, kind of on topic. Why do you think Chelsea have been able to maintain the success that they have, relative success that they have, by having this constant succession of managers, whereas clubs like United and Arsenal... Is it because we're built for legacy and we're built for sort of real long managers, long instances of managers, and Chelsea was set up to just be like brrr, and turbo blast through all these managers, so when players and managers are coming in and out, it doesn't really affect the smooth sailing? Or do you, I don't know, what's the crack? Why are Chelsea able to maintain success with sacking people year in, year out? But I look at what Arsenal are going to do, and I think you're going to plummet. And obviously, we're not having the best of times post-Fergie.
I mean, look at the amount of world-class players that Chelsea have. Look at the bench that they have. You know, like, I hate the term strength and depth, but when you look at a team like Chelsea, I think that's what they have. And I'm not going to turn around and say that, you know, they've got a hell of a lot of money behind them, because I don't think Arsenal are necessarily a club that are struggling in terms of finances, but I do think that when you've got Diego Costa, the likes of Diego Costa, who's going to come off the bench for you, you're going to feel a little bit more positive. And obviously that, in terms of results, it shows for them. What do you reckon?
I think they've been fortunate this season that they had no European football. And I've spoken to one of my mates, is a coach at Southampton, and I said to him, like, what's the difference with playing Europa versus not playing Europa? And he said, if everything's going well, he said it's not a problem. If everyone's doing what they're supposed to, and the club and the team are pulling, and the tactics are gelling with the players well, he goes, it's not an issue to turn around. He goes, we just do a recovery session and then we go again. He said, if it's not going to plan and you need to change tactics and you need to get new systems of play into the players, then having that midweek game means there's no space in the calendar for that to happen. And he said the reason Chelsea have been able to adapt to a new system under Conte is because they've not had that midweek pressure and they've not had that midweek stress. United have had to do it on the fly. I mean, it's also benefited Klopp a little bit as well, I think. I think it's probably something to do with that. I think it's also something to do with the structure of the club. And I think when you get someone like Mourinho who's coming in, there's a lot of deadwood at United. A lot of deadwood. I also think, and someone else came up with this idea, it wasn't my idea, but I like it, so I'm stealing it, was when Mourinho came, he was a fan of Rooney because he tried to sign him. I'm assuming he's a fan of Rooney. He brings in Zlatan, and he looks at his squad and he goes, right, I've got Rooney, Zlatan, I've got Rashford, and I've got Marshall. I know a little bit about these young lads. Zlatan and Rooney should be A-OK. And then what he actually has from Wayne Rooney isn't what he thought he had in Wayne Rooney. So I think he's been a striker down on what he thought he had. And I think that explains a little bit, potentially, of why we've not been firing or scoring as many goals, because he's been 25% down, on striker. So if he gets the opportunity to fix that in the summer, and I think he will, and I'm sure we're going to spend an obscene amount of cash in the summer again, I hope it's on the back of Champions League. Somebody like a Lukaku, somebody like a Griezmann, and I think we're going to be absolutely okay. The last question I've got for you is, what are your thoughts on Robin Van Persie?
Okay, so I mean, he broke our hearts, didn't he? He absolutely broke our hearts. We had him for 8 years. I think you can't deny the fact that for probably 6 of those 8 years, maybe longer, he was in and out of injury. This is where a manager like Arsene Wenger will look after a player like Robin Van Persie and give him chances and renew his contract and keep the faith in him. And then he gets to play and fit like to the top of his level. He becomes incredible. We think this is going to be the end of this drought, and then he breaks our hearts and he's off to United. Not just anyone, to United, to our arch rivals. And not only that, he goes and wins the league with you. Do you know what I mean? It's of course it's devastating, but I think we're over it now. I think you can tell by my reaction. I think we're over it now. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Players leave the club. I think it's just the loyalty that a lot of fans will hate him for. I don't hate him necessarily, but there is a lot of hatred for Robin Van Persie. And I think the problem is when you show loyalty to a player like that, and Arsenal is a club very much built. We mentioned culture 5-10 minutes ago, very much built on that culture. And then he turns around and he gives his best playing days to United after we've looked after him so much. I think you'll forgive us for feeling a little bit annoyed with him, Stephen. I did meet him actually, and he was a lovely fellow. I met him I met him at the end of the last season, and I didn't tell him my real thoughts about him.
I only met him. No, I did only meet him once. Jaden was doing something for Chevrolet, and he got to interview young Raphael, Van Persie, Valdez when he just came, and Van Persie was sound. He signed his little match attack card for him and had a little bit of a chat and spoke about winning the league and that. Yeah, I thought he was cool, but I guess we had no loyalty to him prior to him coming, and then he didn't win us the league. He was an integral part in winning the league. I don't think one player ever wins a league. But yeah, I find it interesting that I guess it had been like if Cantona had left us and gone to you to win a title with you. Maybe. I don't think it's
maybe not quite that much, yeah. Not quite that high. Do you know what though? This is the fickle part of football, is that you want winners on your team, don't you? You want people that have that hunger to win the league at like any costs. And he left Arsenal. He wanted to win the league. He went to United, and he did. So at the same time, he's one single man. If I were a player and I thought, you know what, I don't see my future with this club anymore, as much as I love them, as much as they've put their faith in me, I've also put my faith in them, and I've put my body in the line, because at the end of the day, we're all one person. If I decided one day, it's a job. If I decided I'm not right in this job isn't right for me anymore, but that team over there can offer me something, and I think I can offer them something, and I'm going to go for it. Who are we to begrudge one man
But you can't overlay sensible, normal working practices over football, because football is fundamentally romantic. Otherwise, there is no sport. There are no fans in the stands. No one's watching it from a scientific, pragmatic point of view. It's fucking ridiculous what we do as fans. It makes no sense whatsoever. Like, what ties you to Arsenal over any other selection of 11 guys? Because ultimately, they are essentially, unless you've got a couple of youth players in the team, these are just 11 guys that are getting paid to do this job. So what's the connection between them 11 guys on the pitch? Football and football fandom makes no fucking logical sense whatsoever. So it's totally romantic. So we project our own romantic visions of, I would fucking bleed for this club. I would play for free for 50 years, and I would run till I had no ankles left. But ultimately, footballers aren't doing that. They are picking up a wage, and that's why the likes of like Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs, who do come in, and you've had your own legends like that as well at Arsenal, where they come through the ranks and they play their entire career there and they win the fucking lot. That's what we want from. If Tuanzebe goes on and does that now, if Rashford goes on and does that now, that's football, isn't it? That's why we're in love with the game, because that's the romantic, fucking ridiculous side of it. It's not meant to happen like that. And when you have mercenaries that go from one club to the other, like Zlatan and like Tevez and all that lot, that might be the reality of what football is. But we don't watch football for reality, do we? It's our escapism. It's our romantic thing.
I almost feel like the modern game is going to be a lot different to the romantic side of football that you and I grew up with. Like you say, like with our legends, we have them at our own club as well. I don't know if we'll ever get another Thierry Henry. I don't know if that would ever happen, but I hope it's not going this way. But look at the way it's going with managers. There's no loyalty in management left anymore. We're telling Arsenal to get out. Claudio Ranieri took Leicester to the title.
God,
Next season, he was at
Mancini, Pellegrini, both gone.
There's so much of it. I mean, even Mourinho, after everything that he did for Chelsea,
sacked him.
Sacked him. It's such a conveyor belt now, and I think that is going to feed out into the players as well, because there's so much money in football these days, and I think when money talks, loyalty is much, much less, and all of these guys are built. They've seen their heroes as growing up, and if they can't win the league and if they can't do what they want to do at one club, I don't think that the loyalty is there anymore. That isn't going to take them to another club with a lot of people. I think
the manager loyalty is a weird one. I remember when United won the league for the first time in however many years, when I was 9 or 10 in '93, and I remember really clearly my dad saying, "Fergie can stay for life now," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, he's won the league. He can decide when he needs to go. And that's something that I've always projected on every single manager, whether it's my club or not my club, that if you win a club a title, that should be the pinnacle of what that club achieves. And that should be treated with some sort of reverence. And it obviously isn't. If you look at Ranieri, Ranieri took fucking Leicester to the title and they sacked him. If he'd have got relegated twice on the bounce, they should have just been like, whatever, he won us the league.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? But there is no loyalty. And ultimately, there was people calling for Fergie's head when you lot did the season where you didn't lose in the league, and you had the back-to-back titles from Mourinho. Yeah. So we've gone 3 years without a title, and people are flipping out saying Fergie's fucking lost his touch, get rid of him. And I get accused of being a fucking shill for the club because I didn't say sack Van Gaal. I was just sort of like, this job needs time. And I think there's got to be patience and time, and I've said it with Mourinho. I didn't really say it with Moyes too much because there was a couple of instances where I was like, this guy's just not cut out for this job.
You didn't want him.
But under Louis, I was like, you've got to give the man time. I'll say the same under Mourinho. If we get nothing, if we lose in the final or even lose on Thursday, you'll not see me clamouring for Mourinho to be sacked, because this is a massive job, and ultimately you can't fix 3 years or even 10 years of dodgy investments and questionable signings from even Fergie as well in a couple of transfer windows. It takes longer than that, and I think some Arsenal fans might get their wishes in terms of Wenger leaving this season, but I think they're going to need a lot more patience for whatever comes next or whoever comes next.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm absolutely not. You were so right there. I think next season is when Mourinho is going to really come into his own, and it's almost completely his team. There's a few bits of old wood that you need to maybe get rid of. I think once you've done that, at the beginning of the season, I was thinking with the signings that you made with Zlatan and Pogba especially, and just Mourinho in general coming in, I was like, you guys are going to win the league this year. But you're right.
I said we was going to win the league. Yeah. Chelsea was going to come second to us.
Well, look, I was thinking it was going to be City or United, and look what's happened to Pep. It's not an easy fix. It's not a quick fix. You can't just take a brilliant manager, bring him into a new league with a squad that he hasn't picked, or in a complete squad that he's picked himself, and expect him to work wonders with it. So, yeah, I think that we are spoiled, and that this league, the Premier League, is the best in the world, and it's got the most amazing players. But just by bringing somebody in and going, he's a great manager, it doesn't mean you're going to win the league immediately. And I think that we've got a hell of a few seasons to come if Wenger is going to leave pretty soon.
Right, was it? I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much for joining me. Where can everyone come and stalk you and find you?
You can stalk me on Twitter. I'll be very grateful for that. It's Laura_Woodsy on Twitter. And on Instagram, anyway. It's Laura Woodsy. Yeah, so one's got an underscore and one doesn't.
I'll bang both
it was lovely to talk to
you. In the description below. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Are you doing any more Friday nights this season?
We absolutely are. So we're doing this Friday in West Brom, Chelsea. And then we are doing the following Thursday, which is Leicester Spurs, which would have been really exciting had it come down to the wire there, because obviously Smithy, who I present with, is a massive Spurs fan. Oh yeah, Smithy. Hopefully he'll watch this and support me. It could have been then. It could have been there that Spurs won the league, but obviously that's not going to happen anymore. Thanks to West Ham.
It's going to be happening again next season, the In Off the Bar?
Yeah, I think it is.
Awesome.
We're in talks at the moment. If it doesn't happen, sorry about that, guys. It was obviously something we did wrong. But fingers crossed it is. But yeah, it was lovely to have you on when you came on, actually. You were great. You were on the first one of the season, weren't you?
Yep. So if it goes tits up, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah, we did know. We were like, never get Howson back on. He ruined it.
Anyway, thank you. Make sure you go and follow her. I'll stick all the links in the description below. Please subscribe. And next week we've got Boltwood on after the Spurs game, so that should be interesting. And there might be Jimmy Conrad on next week as well. Just waiting to find out when he's on. And then we've got True Geordie. And then it might go fucking bananas in June. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Laura for joining us. And I'll see you next week.
Bye.